Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is Ulan Gaming, and I am here with another civilization overview. This time we will be covering Germany. Now, Germany is one of these simpler civs, similar to Spain and a lot of the other European civilizations, so I don't think we will have to spend... I don't think this will be a super long video as opposed to the United States or Japan one, but we'll see how it goes. With that, I don't think there's too much intro to get out of the way, so let's just get right into it, starting with the German flag. That is 100% accurate to what it looks like historically and in real life. There is absolutely nothing fishy going on with that flag at all. Now, let's get into their unique mechanics. So, Germany has two basic unique mechanics. The first is that they get free cavalry. They have their own unique cavalry unit called the Ulan, with all of their shipments. And the amounts they get with their shipments depends on what age they're in. They get them starting in age 2. You get 2 Ulans for age 2 shipments, 3 Ulans for age 3 shipments, 4 Ulans for age 4 shipments, and so on and so forth. They say and so on and so forth. It doesn't go any higher than 4. And the other is that they have settler wagons in addition to their normal settlers. Now, settler wagons are quite literally 2 settlers worth of HP, 2 settlers worth of gathering, and 2 settlers worth of population squished into one unit, which you would think, well, doesn't that not make too much of a difference? Well, there's a couple important factors. First is that settler wagons have range resistance as opposed to melee resistance, and because they have 300 base HP as opposed to 150, it makes them very difficult for your enemy to take down settler wagons with their military, because these settler wagons will just tank like nobody's business. And then the second is that even though they cost 2 population and they have the gathering of 2 settlers, they actually only take up 1 unit, which means that in the case of things like farms, you could make 1 farm and put 10 settler wagons on it, and it would be the equivalent of having 2 farms, which just saved you 400 wood. So there's that to consider as well. Now, the general playstyle of... The reason that... you may have heard a lot of people say that Germany has fantastic early game cards, and that is because of the combination of the settler wagon with the free Ulan bonus. Take what is often considered one of the best shipments in the entire game, which is 3 settler wagons in Age 2. With other civilizations, let's take Great Britain for example. Their Age 2 settler card is 5 settlers. Germany, it's 3 settler wagons, but you're not getting 3 settler wagons. What you're essentially saying, you're also getting the Ulans that come with it, and then the settler wagons are worth 2 settlers each, so it's kind of like saying, I'm Great Britain, I have a 5 settler shipment, and Germany says, I'm Germany, I have a 6 settler and 2 hussar shipment. Which is just absolutely incredible and so worthwhile and valuable, and one of the best shipments in the entire game, based on how early you can get it. The general playstyle of Germany is to either semi-fast fortress or go straight into a fast fortress. They can stay in Age 2, but they don't like to do it for very long, because they lack a skirmisher or a dragoon in Age 2, as well as lacking a musketeer unit. So pretty much all they have access to in Age 2 is the hussar, the hussar crossbowman and the Doppelsoldner, which is their anti-cav pike equivalent. It's kind of similar to a samurai, but with more HP and less damage. So Germany players are fine staying in Age 2 for a little bit, but they generally want to go up to the Fortress Age as fast as possible, where they can get access to their skirmisher, as well as just their veterancy upgrades in general. As for their age-up system, they are European, so they have politicians, the most boring of all the age-ups. It's just age-up, get the bonus, kabish, kaboosh, gedone. Their hero is the Explorer. Which we all know the Explorer, he's got the crack shot, we all know and love him, there's nothing else to say. Now, as for unique units, Germany has 3, but you will notice that I have 4 units up here, and that is because I wanted to make sure that the Skirmisher got put up here as a noteworthy unit, as a noteworthy German asset unit. that is very important to their overall composition. Because although the skirmisher is not a German unique unit, it wouldn't really be a German overview if I skipped over the fact that they have really good skirmishers. Now would it? So for their unique units, they have 3 of them. One is the Ulan, which is the cavalry that they get from, their shipments. It's a pretty coin-heavy unit. It's a little cheaper total cost-wise, but more expensive on the coin department than other cavalry. And the whole thing about the Ulan is that it's a glass cannon. It has 190 base HP, which is a lot lower than the 320, I think, that Hussars have at base. But they have a whopping, 41 or 42 attack at base, which is pretty crazy. But I mean, ultimately, most German Ulans still lose to Hussar just because of the tanky difference, and I don't think there's any German player out there who wouldn't wish that they had Hussars instead of Ulans with their free shipments. Let's just say that if Germany had the Hussar instead of the Ulan, they would probably be really fucking broken. So the Ulan is a glass cannon. It's a very valuable. It's a very easy unit to mass through its total cost, as well as the shipment system. It's just an overall very solid unit. They also have the Doppelsoldner, which, as I mentioned, is like a samurai, but more tanky and with less damage, which sounds like a detriment, but it's really not. The Doppelsoldner, I think, fulfills the samurai's role better than the samurai, because the samurai does do a lot of damage, but the ultimate job of the samurai is to be a frontline bullet sponge, and Doppelsoldners can do this better simply by the fact that they sponge more, and they still pump out a very, very hefty amount of damage. They have 20 base attack in Age 2, which is the same as a Halberdier, which isn't available until Age 3, but they also got that splash, so it's not like their damage isn't good. Their damage is amazing, it's just not as good as the Samurai. And then the last one is the War Wagon. War Wagon is supposed to be a slow powerhouse Dragoon with extra range, but unfortunately it kind of falls flat in a lot of regards, just because just because of its movement speed, as well as the fact that its higher range was nerfed, and it has melee resistance instead of range resistance, so it's very easy to get caught up by skirmishers. Speaking of skirmishers, Germany has very good skirmisher shipments. They can buff them quite a bit. They have the Royal Guard upgrade that turns them into needle gunners starting in the Industrial Age, and the skirmisher is just an overall very solid addition to the German unit roster. Now, of course, Germany does have other units. They have pikemen, they have crossbows, but I'm not going to bother talking about them because they're not as important as they're not unique or important to this overall civs function like the skirmisher is. So Germany. So when we're talking about Germany unit compositions, you do have to keep in mind that Germany lacked 2 things, and that is a solid Dragoon unit, and the first thing they lack is a solid Dragoon unit, and the second thing they lack is a Musketeer unit at all, which means that their unit compositions tend to be a little lopsided. But their unit but the thing about Germany is that they are definitely a quality over quantity civilization. So even though their unit rosters are kind of lopsided, and you can generally find a way to spam one unit and kind of get away with it, Germany's units are so high quality that they can kind of play around that weakness of theirs. So they have 3 primary unit compositions that you will run into for most of your matches. This is not to say that all of Germany players will do this, of course not. You'll see other things as well. You'll see crossbow rushes, you'll see mercenary builds and all that jazz, but in terms of primary unit compositions that Germany runs, there are 3 that come to mind. The first is a unit composition based on spamming the skirmisher and creating support units for said skirmisher. The second is to spam the Ulan and create support units for that Ulan. And then the third is to just combine skirmishers and Ulans together, which make a very strong unit composition until your enemy realizes they can just spam Hussar. That is kind of the weakness of Germany, is just that because they are so lopsided, they do have to do things like that. I've seen a lot of people go skirmisher with some Uhlans because of their shipments, and some Dops thrown in as well to counter cavalry, and that's usually a pretty solid one I see. But the basic unit comp of Germany is to pick one of your between skirmishers and Uhlans and just run with it, while everything else is meant to support your primary unit that you are spamming. As for things to watch out for with Germany, I have 3 here, and 2 of them are kind of similar, but Germany is very well known for having very, very good H3, very, very good mercenary shipments, and of course this applies through H3 and 4. But the 2 that they're most famous for are the H3 shipments for Black Riders and and Jaegers. Black Riders and Jaegers are very powerful Dragoon type units, or the Black Rider is a Dragoon, the Jaeger is a skirmisher. They're very powerful units that definitely help round out the German civilization's unit composition in the short term, and these shipments can be absolutely game-changing. So you do need to be very cognizant of when a Germany player hits H3, because you can expect them to eventually send the Jaegers or Black Riders, possibly immediately, possibly while you're pushing into their base. You never quite know. And then possible merc builds. You know, if a German, make sure to check a Germany player's deck. You want to find out if he's got like 6 or 7 mercenary shipments, or the mercenary combat card that boosts them by 20%. Those are things that you need to make sure that you watch out for when you're fighting a Germany player. Because if they catch you off guard and go with their mercenary build, you might just be shut out, and there might be nothing that you can do to stop it if you're not prepared for it. And then I put in Beware the Surprise Dot Mass. This one's kind of rare, but sometimes German players will. So you'll be practiced at fighting Uhlans and skirmishers and whatnot, and you'll think that you have the enemy down pat, and then they'll surprise you with a huge mass of Doppelsoldners flanking you. And the Doppelsoldners are very deadly to pretty much anything they touch, and if you see a Doppelsoldner mass, you have to respect it and back up and deal with it before anything else, because if the Dops touch your army's gonna die. Now, when we talk about the red square units, that is the main reason that I put the DOP as a red square unit, in terms as in to say that this is one of their good units that you need to watch out for, because even though it's not going to be the primary unit, it could be your primary unit comp, but even though it's not usually going to be your primary unit comp like the Skirmisher and the Dragoon does, and even though it's anti-cav like the War Wagon, but in melee, unlike the, it's still better than the War Wagon, because it's not just a threat to cavalry, it's a threat to everything that it touches. And if somebody makes DOPs, you need to respect the DOP mass. So that is going to be my Germany overview, kind of short this time. Thank you guys very much for watching, and have a great day.